What's up, guys? Shaz here, and welcome to another review. Today, we're gonna be doing it on Halo Reach. So, I'm just gonna put it all out right now. Halo Reach is one of my favorite Halo games. I prefer it to the original trilogy and any game that 343 has put out in the under the Halo franchise. Not because it's like Bungie's last attempt or anything like that, but although it is obviously Bungie's last game on Halo, it's one of the first Halo games that decided not to follow on the whole Master Chief route. Actually, it's a prequel to the Halo CE. In this game, you play as a bunch of Spartans in no relation to Master Chief, and I kind of liked about that. Instead of like focusing on Halo or Master Chief, they actually give you a new story, a story before everything that happens in like the original trilogy. So in this game, you play as Noble Six, a silent protagonist who occasionally speaks in like cutscenes, but not on like actual gameplay. And he was meant to be like the player's character, the player's Spartan. Like every action he does is based on him and the player. So that's what made him rare and cool. Kind of liked that idea. There's Jun, the silent sniper. He has his own custom made armor, which is like cloaked up, indicating his sniping like habits. There's Emil, who likes to get close up and personal with a shotgun and like knife. There's Cat, the smart person of the group, the intelligent and who's like really good at hacking. There's Carter and George. Both of them are like a lot of fan favorites, considering that George is one of the rarest Spartans you'll see throughout the game. And the game shows it by like showing that how each Spartan has his own weapon, which signifies what the character is. Noble Six will pick up whatever weapon he can, since he's the player and he likes to have like different weapon options and freedom of how they want to play. George will be using a machine gun turret from a Warthog, and he's the only one who can do that. Emil will use a shotgun because he likes the close up and personal encounters. Cat likes a pistol since she's not used to engagement and counter, so she only likes to carry light weapons. Jun will use a sniper rifle with like his own like custom made bullets, so that's what they are. And Carter and the rest only like carry around normal weapons. But I think what I like most about Halo Reach isn't just the fact that they focus on the soldiers. It's the fact that they focus on the planet. They show off the planet's beauty, its structures, its environments. They like to show off their design and a lot of concept art that Bungie's made, and I think that's a really good thing. Because in like games like Halo CE 2 and any other game, you're not really shown much about the rings. Like you can see the rings there and all, but there's never been an artistic focus on the Halo rings. And in Reach, that idea was like given an opposite approach. So stuff like beautiful concept arts, explosions, broken ships was a common theme used in the game. I also like how they use different camera angles and like different views to show like Reach instead of like making an open camera cutscene. So in a lot of cutscenes you'll see like you're either looking at from a building camera, a security camera, someone's helmet, Noble Six's helmet, stuff like that. And I kind of like it because it's like they want to show you from a single point some of the stuff they've made, some of the art they've made. Like the one you're seeing right now is one of the Covenant ships George blows up, and it's like a really awesome view because it shows like what type of damage a Covenant human war does. The thing about what makes this game separate from any other Halo game is that in every other Halo game, the Halos are always involved. There's not much of tragedy, not much about loss. There's not anything about that. Sure, there are a few scenes where there's like emotional moments, but there's never scene talking about how the human Covenant war actually affects the planets. And Reach takes that idea and puts it all over the game. You see it throughout the game, where like the Battle of Alexandria and stuff like that, where you come across a war-torn city where Covenant ships are attacking. You see dead bodies everywhere and like civilians on the ground. It's a nice approach. It's like it's not always about Halo rings or the Flood or the Covenant. It's about what the wars between these two sides does eventually and how like gruesome it can be. That this is one of the things I liked about Reach always, about how they always wanted to show not only the fight between, like, it's not always about okay look at how badass these Spartans are or how big these set pieces are. The game also does a really nice job on showing the tragedies between the Covenant UN war, about how cities fall in like a matter of minutes, how human life is, how many civilian lives who are just trying to go through their day all of a sudden die, all spark out all of a sudden because of a war. You see bodies everywhere in New Alexandria. You see Covenant forces torturing civilians, stuff like that. Even some of the beautiful things about some of these missions are the fact that they're not like directly involved in conflicts. Like the first mission you play, you're not actually there to fight any Covenant. You're actually on a patrol run because there was a signal loss. So you were just going there to check it out, nothing else. I do kind of felt annoyed that they didn't put any insurrectionists, because in if you watch the Halo comics or like read Halo comics, you'll know that insurrectionists play a huge part in like the Halo verse. And this game like started off with like showing the idea that there were maybe insurrectionists involved, but you later on just fight the Covenant. But I like the idea that you weren't just forced into the combat or said that, oh no, you already know what the enemies are or like what's happening. You're actually like going in, checking out clues, checking out broken ships, checking out battles that happened, seeing civilians who warn you about enemies, things that they haven't seen. Because as civilians, they don't know about the Covenant. If you're a Spartan, you would, but not as a civilian, and that leaves up a huge like space for conclusion on what's happening. Also, you can see even in mid game about how each character like uses what type of weapon. Like Carter will use a DMR. Carter will be the only person to use a DMR. Emil will be the only person to use a shotgun, and Cat will maybe bring a pistol only sometimes. But that's something I like, that it's like each weapon also signifies each character. Because again, this isn't about Master Chief. This isn't about the Halo Rigs. This isn't about Arbiter. It's about a squad of Spartans trying to fight a losing battle. Something again that I like about Reach. It shows in like midway through that there is no chance for your team to survive. That your team will lose. There is no option of winning. But even then, you go into these battles knowing that maybe you can fight some more, give some time for people to escape, and that's what I liked about Halo Reach. The fact that you're always fighting a losing battle, but you're still trying to minimize the damage. You're trying to destroy bases that would harm human resistance. You're trying to save human ships that are trying to evacuate by activating anti-air. That's something I liked about Halo Reach. The fact that the action isn't just about a one-man army. It's about a bunch of soldiers who are trying to reduce the harm that's already happening to them. Also, I like to add that there were a lot of weapons this time in Halo Reach. They had a lot of new weapons added from the old games, while adding new weapons as well. You've got the DMR, which is like a big debate on whether the DMR is better or the BR is better. I personally like the DMR. Also, a lot of people hated Reach for the bloom effect. I kinda liked it because it made like overpowered weapons like the DMR like more balanced, because there was like a rule of how you need to fire, how you need to like be steady with your shots, how much trigger discipline you need to have. I like that about Halo Reach because it felt like there was actual like control of how you're playing as a soldier, not some badass one man army Spartan. Also, I like that the grunts and like the elites had different armors and like different armor customization. You will notice that how each elite and grunt has their own armor or differentiate their rank from others. Like a yellow elite will always have grunts with him. signifying that he's the senior in that position. Then there's the white elites that are like commandos and will like deploy in teams. Then there's like the I think purple red darkish red elites. Those are like special elites, and then the game also signifies them. They've got the highest armor and like are the most difficult to take on since they carry super weapons like explosives and are the fastest and most agile. And then there's like the regular soldier, another elite called I can't name them, but they wear like a helmet and have jetpacks. Now these are the weakest elite, but they have the most like movement because they have like most agility. There's also Spartan abilities, which I personally enjoy more than Halo 3's, because this time you can like use abilities on your own, like by yourself. It's not like when you grab an ability now you have to that you will be not be able to use it, but instead that ability is now rechargeable and can be used by your own preference, not by just picking it up and then the game forcing that ability on you. I kind of like this a lot, and I also like that the abilities aren't too overpowered. They're balanced enough that one ability can counter the other in any way or form. I also like that Halo Reach invented new things that a lot of fans already like. Stuff like executions, Spartan controllable Spartan abilities, and I'm pretty sure anyone who like played Reach will always remember each mission specifically because each mission had its own dynamic, its own like uh, cool aesthetics, its environment, its like mission bases, like the Night Haven mission where you're on a stealth mission with Jun to recon some government, I mean Covenant ships, and then you're like sniping with, and you have like a 69 round sniper. Like it's a great like aesthetic because each mission has its own like uniqueness. You see new enemies, you see covenants of new like form, like the yellow, like I said, the yellow and white elites. Then there's the jetpack elites who can like fly around but are super weak, stuff like that. It makes the game fun. There's also like different enemies like the new skimmers, which are basically the opposite of a jackal. Instead of like grabbing a shield and like staying in a position, skimmers move around, have lower armor but can like actually be threatening, stuff like that. Another thing I liked about Halo Reach was the fact that they added actual wildlife to the planets, because this was never done in like other Halo games. Like there were no actual hostile wildlife creatures against you, and I think that was disappointing and like something that could have been done, because the idea of like showing that Reach actually had its own habitat, its own creatures that you had to fight was always like a great aesthetic in the game. I enjoyed that personally. Also enjoyed that you have like the freedom of weapon choice, because again you knew which weapon, how each weapon would work and how each would have its own significance, and stuff like this made it enjoyable. You had the idea of which enemy you wanted to attack first. Do you want to take out the grunt on the turret, or the jackals group that are stuck together? It had the idea of making the player decide which enemies they wanted to engage. Spartan abilities again, they were fun. There was sprint, there was armor lock, there was jetpack, which I think was the most fun since it gave a lot of verticality and movement freedom to the player. Again, like this a lot. I also like the way they conveyed each Spartan's death in the game. Now this may be spoiler territory, so if you want to leave, I suggest you do it now. But almost every Spartan in this game will die, and each of their deaths will be ironic and like sad because it would represent their character. Just in case, I'm just gonna show each meaning of it. So the first one would be George, your like the big guy, the one who's like the only unique Spartan in the entire franchise, and he dies off while protecting Reach. Since he was born on Reach, George tries to blow up the Covenant ship by himself. And the ironic, sad part about this was that George really loved Reach and he was willing to die for the planet. So it was super sad that the fact that he died off planet from the planet he loved. He died protecting a planet where he wouldn't even be buried in. and that kind of was like really sad because again it's ironic. Then there's Cat's death, who is the brains of the group and is shot in the head at the most surprising moment. Like no one expected it to happen, but Cat unfortunately dies from one shot to the head. It's like, and it's like symbolizes that she's the intelligence of the group, of the planner, the basic brain of the group, and then her death comes. That's the most shocking. Jun isn't the only team member in the group who doesn't die, but again that signifies with his character, the one who remains silent, the guy who's always hidden, the long range guy. Jun is like gone from the game as soon as you send him with Halsey. He is no longer a character with your group. This was like Jun's final act as a noble team member, and again it signifies his character, the silent, hidden type, the one who you don't know what happened to because again he you never see what where he is. And Carter's death, although I can't show it because it's I forgot to it got corrupted in the footage. Carter dies protecting Noble Six and Emil as team leader. His final death scene is basically protecting his men from Scarab, and it's like it's ironic because again it symbolizes his role as a captain to make sure his men are safe. And Emil dies like the most poetic way, again in close quarters, and he dies by an energy sword through his chest. And even in the end, with an energy sword in the head, he takes out the elite that stabbed him with his own knife, ironically ending him the way he lived. And the final death is of your character, Noble Six, who dies alone, as he's indicated in the beginning of the game by Carter that Noble Six is like a lone wolf in most of his operations. Noble Six again dies alone while fighting an army of Covenant by himself, again signifying his role as a lone wolf. Again, this is something I liked about Halo, about how there was better storytelling shown by camera angles and like environment rather than this plain exposition. So this is one of the reasons I liked Halo Reach, and I hope that this also like makes sense to you guys. But alright guys, I'm gonna be ending the video here. And if you guys wanna give Halo Reach a chance, I highly recommend it. It's a great game. But I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.